type of item, and it protects the body of the animal from, the load and maybe scratching on the body, has a saddle cloth. But also one of the things that the saddle cloth services does is that it brings warmth to the animal. We said that the donkey, even in the summertime, is hot. I'm sorry, it's cold. Even in the summer, it's cold. And even though the summer is a time of heat, it always feels cold. Like some people, like we mentioned, there are people, sometimes there's some elderly people that always feel, so to speak, they feel cold. And so they wear this for warmth purposes as well. So therefore, it's clothing. And therefore, it's clothing of the animal. So therefore, it is not considered carrying. The animal goes out within a Shabbat. It's not considered carrying. So that's what the Mishnah said. Chamor yotzei b'mardat. The donkey can go out on Shabbat with the saddle cloth. Adam, if you want to send to the group, Mishnah continues, but there's a condition. Bizman shehi kshurabo. When the saddle cloth is tied to the donkey. If it's not tied to the donkey, and the Gemara is going to explain, it needs to have been tied, in order for it to go out to public property, it needs to have been tied before the Shabbat. Zacharim, the rams, males, which is the male sheep, Yotzin Luvuvin. They go out Luvuvin. What is Luvuvin? We're going to see the Gemara is going to give different explanations what Luvuvin means. Rashi says you got to stay tuned to the Gemara. Rechelot, the female sheep, they go out Yotzot, Shchuzot, Kfulot, Kfunot. They could go out with good morning, Asaf. The female sheep could go out on Shabbat wearing the Shchuzot, having on them the Shchuzot, the Kfulot, Kfunot. And also Rashi says, stay tuned in the Gemara what that will be. One of them is going to be something that's going to protect their wool. We'll see what they are as we go along. Right? Shchuzot, Kfulot, Kfunot. Ha'izim, the goats. Yotzot, Surot. And here Rashi doesn't say stay tuned for the Gemara. It's the izim, the goats, they could tie their udders, and they could go out with this item with this thing that's tied to their udders. And then why did they tie the udders? Either they wanted to they tied it in a way, Rashi says that sometimes they wanted to dry out the udders, that they would, in order that they shouldn't have any more milk. They won't produce any more milk. And if they don't produce any more milk, they become pregnant. And that could be one of the reasons why they did it. Or they wanted that the milk should be, or they should become fat to be able to be eaten. So because they wanted, and sometimes they would tie a little pouch to the udder in order that it should not the milk, to guard the milk, that it shouldn't fall to the ground and get lost. So this opinion says that it could go out with the udder tied, and what seems to even be, according to Rashi, seems to be explaining that even with this kiss, even with this pouch, which you could ask, maybe this pouch seems to be extra, seems to be a carrying, but this opinion says you could go out with udders tied. But if you look at note number 50, sometimes they're tied to stop lactation, either to allow the goats to conceive, or because the goats will become fatter as a result of that. Sometimes the pouch is tied to the udders to prevent the milk from dripping and being wasted. So when he says so we have to know, I'm not sure if he's going to allow it to be with the pouch. We have to see about that, but at least with the udders being tied, that's not a problem if the udders are tied. And this opinion would hold that it's like a malbush. It's like something we'll consider this like part of part of the animal, like the clothing of the animal, even though it's not really clothing of the animal, right? It's not for the warmth of the animal, but it's to, let's see if any other commentaries say anything over here.
Which channel was this again?
It's the goats. The goats, when the udders are tied with a garment, right? Use the garment, that's what Meiri says. Whether the purpose was to dry it out from milk, you want it, the fact that it produces milk prevents it from becoming pregnant. And or when the animal gives out its milk, it doesn't stay as fat, doesn't get so fat. But if the milk doesn't come, so then the animal just doesn't come out. The animal just gets heavier. So you're tying these udders, but then they say in the Masifta Gemara, they also say whether you tied and whether you tied it, you tied like some sort of pouch to protect the milk shouldn't fall to the ground. And that he even allows that, even though the animal is carrying this garment that's tying its udders, and it's not serving to warm the animal, it's not serving to beautify the animal as a beautiful normal piece of jewelry, yet he considers these items become like part of the animal. It becomes like secondary to the animal. It's not considered a load. You don't consider this a load when you tie it, and that tie that's around the udder, that's serving the udder, that it should not it should not give out milk. We don't look at that as it's an independent item that it's carrying, like carrying a load, like carrying keys, or carrying something. It's directly done to the animal. It's tied around to the animal itself.
So they're in the middle now.
So therefore it becomes like secondary to the animal, and it's not a problem. It's not a problem of the animal carrying. Remember, the animal has to rest on Shabbat. The Torah says you have to rest on Shabbat. The animal has to rest on Shabbat. The animal can't carry something, go from private to public on Shabbat, carrying something. So he holds that this tying the udders is considered like it's like becomes the animal, and that becomes like it's not looked at, and then it goes out with that thing that's tied to the udders.
So we're talking about the whatever the string is. The question is whether that counts as a
right. If that string, that thing that you tie to the udders, is whether that is considered extra.
Right.
It's something that's not. There's something on the animal there is this string that's on the animal that's tied to the udders. That's not the animal itself. It's not a piece of clothing. It's not a piece of jewelry, right? We're doing Masechta Shabbat. We just started a Mishnah. You're cordially invited.
52B.
52B. We're doing the chapter about Me'eh Behema Yotzet Shabbat. On 52B4.
The Rabbi, without the strings, I guess what the cows leak? Is that the idea?
Right. So this string, they're making the string. It could serve multiple purposes. Sometimes they would tie something around the udders, and they make the string into like a little pouch. Sometimes they would tie the udders to make it tight because they don't want milk. They don't want it to produce milk.
Right.
Sometimes they would tie it in a way not so tight, but more like you tie with a string to make some sort of pocket.
But the pocket is inside the cow.
Inside the cow, on the udders, around the udders.
The milk is kind of.
So therefore, in case you don't want the milk to drip to the ground, so that would like catch it, right? It would seem like that would catch the milk, right?
So Rabbi, this is like a Band-Aid. This is the closest analogy I can think of. You know what I mean?
Right. What do you want to say?
Like if a human puts on a Band-Aid, that's the closest analogy to this I can think of, where it's like there's a liquid inside, we don't want it to come out, so we block the hole. So right, and that's all that.
Right. So the question is exactly this situation. Right? You say like a Band-Aid. So if you want to go ahead and you take the udder and you tie it tight because you want the milk you want to dry it out. That the milk should not, right? That it won't be able to produce. It won't produce milk.
That's right? What it is.
It's multiple things. There's multiple situations. Rashi says, meaning there's different things happening. What's your name? David. Right. We're talking about Shabbat. We said we established a Shabbat. You can't go ahead and your animal can't carry from private to public. Same way you can't go from Mishra to Yochad to Mishra to Rabbi. So the Mishnah now mentions, what about if you would tie the udder where it produces the milk? If you tie it before Shabbat, let's say you tied it, can it go out on Shabbat with that ring, that string, a rope that you tied around it? Now, why would a person tie the udder? Why would you want the udder is where the milk comes from? Why would you tie? So the Rashi says there are different reasons why you would do it. Number one, sometimes you might want to stop the animal from giving out milk. No milk. Because as long as it produces milk, then it's not going to become pregnant, let's say. It doesn't become pregnant so fast. But if it doesn't produce milk, it can become pregnant, or it will become heavier. The animal, if the milk doesn't come out of the animal and it stays in, you tie the udder, that will make it heavier. You want to have it heavier because you want to have more meat. You want to get more meat on the deal, right? Nice Rosh Chodesh treat you want it, right? Some people in the different customs today in the community. Some people in the Sephardic community eat meat today because of Rosh Chodesh. Some don't, right? The different customs. Ashkenaz already stopped meat last night. Beginning of the 9 days. But Sephardim, some eat meat today in Rosh Chodesh. Depends on whatever your custom of your community is. But so that's one reason why you would tie the udders of the animal. And sometimes they tie a pouch to the udders because you don't want the milk, when the animal is in its everyday life, it can have a leak. You don't want to leak, then you lose the milk. Now that shot, that's going to be a harder understanding. Now the question is that to go out with that, you tied a pouch. You wrapped the pouch around. You tied something and you formed a little container, and according to that, there's an opinion according to this understanding of the Rashi, that's that's not a problem. According to one opinion, we'll see another rabbi is going to disagree. So the animal can't go out on Shabbat with this rope tied to his udders, because that's not it's not part of the animal. It's not serving the animal. It's serving you, right? Your question is when you tie the rope, it's serving you that the milk shouldn't fall. Shouldn't fall to the ground.
So you're saying if it was for the animals, let's say it was for the animal's comfort, like if you didn't put this on, the animal would be like in pain or something.
Right,
That would change the whole.
that might change the whole story, because then it might, yeah, just like for the comfort of the animal's cold, you could put on a piece of clothing for the animal, a saddlecloth. The Mishnah says, which the animals wear. Some of the reasons for the saddlecloth, it's not only it's called a saddle cloth. Why is it called a saddle cloth? Because the saddle goes on top of that cloth in order that the cloth prevents the saddle from digging into to the skin of the animal. But it also serves as warmth, as to warm the animal. And that there's no problem. If it's something animals did to warm the animal, that's part of the animal. It's like when you wear clothing, you're not carrying clothing when you wear clothing. So that correct. That if it's serving the animal in that aspect, or makes the animal look pretty, if it's normal for an animal to wear this type, so many would say that's also not called a load. The same way when you wear jewelry, it's not serving you to prevent you from cold, but the jewelry is like it's like part of it becomes batel to you, tafel to you. It's secondary to you. It's not deemed that it's not looked at as an independent item, right? You have keys. Keys, it's not you. It's not part of you. It's not embellishing you. It's not making you look better. It's not improving your appearance. So therefore, it's called an independent item. But David, David, right? Am I clear? So now this opinion says, now you can make a big case that tying a string around the udders, what does it have to do with the now unless you say that since when you tie the string around the udders and it's serving the animal, it's affecting the animal, that it's becoming pregnant and becoming fat. It's part of the animal in a certain sense, because it's affecting the way the animal is going to produce milk. It's going to be, so maybe that might, you might say, how do you view it? Is this becomes like part of the animal? Like it's not an independent item. It just becomes the life of the animal. So this opinion holds it's not considered a. Now, the Chafetz Chaim says it's not considered a load because some of it is done for the health of the animal, right? So let's say you understand you want the animal to become fat, right? Fat, heavy was considered a sign of strength, right? In the old days, that we are heavy, that means you're healthy, right? So a heavier animal is considered a healthier animal. So if you're doing something because you want the animal to become pregnant, you want the animal to become fattier, so that you can understand that is for the animal, for the benefit of the animal, like you were saying, Adam, before. So it's the animal itself. So that's not called a load. It's not called independent, something, it's wearing something that's independent, because this is, so when the animal is warm instead of cold, or the animal is strong, is healthier, as a result, if you do something, put something on it, if you tie it, so that's not called a load. The only thing that needs more clarity would be this pouch, right? If you tie something just to watch that the milk should not go to the ground, that's not for the animal. That's for you. Right? So if you tie this pouch around it, so that's where they're going to the Ritva is gonna, they quote the Ritva that says, listen, if you put the pouch, even if you're going to say the pouch that you tie around the udders is like second to it's part of, becomes like secondary to the animal, but the milk that gathers in that pouch, right? It's carrying, that's like a container of milk. You carry a container of milk. So how is that allowed? Even if we're going to say that you tie something around the udders and you tie it in the form of a little, that it could catch something, and you're going to say that it's around the udders, it's tied to the udders, it becomes part of the animal because it's tied to it. Let's say you're going to make that case, but the milk that's going to collect in this that you're catching that shouldn't leak onto the floor, that milk should be considered you're carrying milk. Animals carrying milk. David, you hear what? That's the question that the Ritva has on that position.
How are you even able to put a pouch there to catch the milk during Shabbat?
Isn't that what? Tell me, isn't that what?
Even without the carrying, like, so you're saying there's a pouch under where
you tie a rope, you tie a string, and you form with the string. The string itself forms a little like
like right at the pouch is inside the app.
Right. The pouch is, let's say, around
the pocket, yeah.
But like under the
udder. Under
we don't lose a drop of milk.
But the milk is, but that pouch, the bucket is still like in the animal.
Right. It's not a bucket. It's not a bucket.
Okay, so there's a thing.
There's a string. You tied a string. Let's say you tied a string and you wrapped it around in a way. You wrap the string around a few ways that now the string forms a little pocket. The string, you caught you. Let's say if this is a string, right? If I have a very long string like this, and then I tie it around, then this and then this, then the string will go ahead and catch. Let's say I made it in a way that'll catch the milk.
So would that be a problem with catching like liquid? Didn't we learn like catching the oil and then reusing it to cook? Like that wasn't allowed. Isn't this like
right. Yeah, but that's the question of taking away the brightness of a fire, removing something, removing oil from a lamp, from a light, right? So, or right. We also spoke about the dripping of the oil, but that's about fuel and flame and great fire and that stuff. So here, now you're not allowed to milk it. We don't milk an animal on Shabbat, right? But here we're talking about catching the milk. Here we're talking about you tied it, let's say, before Shabbat. Here the issue is is the animal carrying? Okay, so that's now. So the first opinion says it's allowed. Rabbi Yossi oseh bekulam. Yossi says no. You can't tie this rope around the udder to prevent it from giving off milk or to catch milk. All those things that we said before are no good, except there's one case that he would allow. He says, chutz min harachelim hakfunot. But when the sheep, when the female sheep, when they have a garment wrapped on the wool, because that is, if you want to protect the wool, that the wool shouldn't get dirty, that is not considered. Now, so some of the commentaries explain that we said earlier that an animal could go out with something that it wears to beautify the animal, that's normal to beautify the animal, it could go out with on Shabbat. And they say this item that they wrapped around the wool was also something that they would generally wrap it with. So some want to say it's like you could look at it. This beautifies the animal. You could say the animal doesn't get dirty. Maybe you could say, how do you beautify an animal? You could beautify an animal by putting some nice gold around its neck, if that's the normal way, of some silver around its neck. Or you could beautify the animal, it makes the animal look, the normal, if the animals has some sort of garment around the animal to protect its wool, that's the way that was considered, that's the beautification of the animal. And it makes the animal look good. The wool stay clean. So this is the normal way it's a normal wearing. It's not a piece of clothing. Maybe you won't call it a piece of clothing, but maybe you'll put it into the category of something that's worn for beautification purposes. The saddle cloth is something that goes generally under the saddle. But it's also used to protect the body of the animal from getting scratched from the load. But it's also right. It's not for beauty, but that's not the reason. But that should make it a load, because if it's protecting it from a saddle, that should be a problem. But it's also used for warmth, because the animals, donkeys, even in the summer, are cold, and they need a blanket in the summer. They need some sort of garment in the summer, and therefore the saddle cloth is used also for warming, keeping the animal warm. So therefore, it's like clothing, so it's not considered a carrying on Shabbat. It's just like, but can't use it. I mean, if you didn't tie it, if it wasn't tied before Shabbat, even if you can't tie it on the Shabbat, even if you tie it in a way that's not a prohibited way of tying. Right? There's a problem of tying things on Shabbat. You can't tie it on Shabbat and take it from private to public. That the Gemara is going to say that'll be an independent issue why you can't do that. But a saddle cloth on a donkey generally is like a garment, it's like clothing. And therefore, because it keeps the animal warm, so it should not be a problem. Decorations has its own strength. You don't need to, if something is used as decorative purposes for an animal, and it's normal decorative purposes, not that I decided I want to decorate the animal, that's not my, it might be not, but if it's a normal common way, then most opinions say many opinions say that's fine. That's not called a load. It's not called a masad. The same way a human being could wear jewelry, you're not carrying your necklace, you're not carrying your necklace, right? So because you're wearing it, it's beautifying you. It's not, even though it's not serving as a garment, it's not clothing, but it's beautifying you. So if something that beautifies the animal, it's normal to wear for beautification purposes, that would be considered not a load. Does that answer your question? And the saddle cloth is under the category of clothing. Then there's certain things that are under the category of jewelry.
Either way, it's flat.
Either way, it's allowed. Exactly. Either way, it's allowed. Whatever title, however you title it, however you want to spin it, saddle cloth is good. Right. That's what the Gemara. Saddle cloth is good. Now, so we have Ralph Batesh listening to the class driving while he's driving. Doing the mitzvah of V'lechtecha b'derech. As long as you have to focus on the road, of course, Ralph.
I'm listening and focusing.
As long as you can do both, then you're allowed then you do it. Okay. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Yehuda says, Izim, he says like this, he agrees, Izim, the goats, so throughout the goats, you could tie its udders, like the Tanakama says, that the garment, if you tie the udders, it's not considered a load. He's a third opinion, right? Right, but he's agreeing with Tanakama so far. But that's only if the purpose is to liyavesh, if you want to dry out the animal that it should not produce any milk. So that's the norm. You would tie it tight, very well, and that's no problem. Because you would tie it well. There's no concern that it would fall off. Because you need to tie it in order that they won't produce any milk. Avolo chalav. But if the purpose is you want to just go ahead and watch the milk, right? You don't want the milk to fall to the ground. That he says he will not allow. Now, Rashi says that the reason why he doesn't allow for tying the pouch around the udder to protect the milk from leaking onto the floor is because if you make a little pouch, when you tie it in a way of making a pouch to catch the milk, that means it's loose. That thing that you tied around it because you had to give a little space, right? You're not making it tight because you want it to catch milk. So if you wanted to catch milk, you go ahead and you put a little space. There's a little space between the udder and the bottom of this pouch that you created by tying this thing, and because it's loose, so maybe the rabbis are afraid maybe it will fall. This pouch would fall off the animal while you take it to public property, and you might come to forget, and might come to carry the pouch, and then you'll be violating the Torah. So in order to prevent the person shouldn't come to Torah violation, we saw many rabbinic enactments that they were afraid, let's say if you wear a certain type of clothing, I think let's say it was something, let's say maybe very large shoes, or shoes that might fall off, then you might come to carry, right? The rabbis were concerned, but women going out with jewelry on Shabbat, they were concerned that maybe they would take off the jewelry in the public and show their friend, look what I got. Look at this new thing I got, and they would carry. And therefore, women, the Gemara talks about not wearing jewelry on Shabbat on public property.
You know, that's the reason.
Say it again.
How does Rashi know that's the reason you can't do it?
That Rashi, because you might come to carry, right?
And you just can't catch milk. So then I can-
Right. Maybe right. That's a good question. What forces Rashi? The Rashi.
To say.
The Rashi. It's because. Right. Why did Rashi? Right. Why did Rashi say that the issue is maybe it's a masa, it's a load, right? It's a cat. Right.
Can't walk out of your house with a
Right. So you're saying, what is Rashi? Now the question is, does everybody hold like Rashi? First of all, that's Rashi's explanation. Let's see if everybody agrees with Rashi. Let's see if they bring anybody. There are those that will disagree and say, yeah, others disagree. They even bring Rashi. Rashi later on, another Gimel and Beis says that Rabbi Yehuda is that the problem is you're carrying the milk, like you said. But Rashi later on says that when you tie it to watch the milk and it gathers in the pouch, you can't allow the animal to go out that way because it's carrying milk. So there seems to be a little contradiction, Rashi over here and Rashi over there. What is the reason why it can't go out? Chodesh Tov, why it can't go out with the pouch, according to Rabbi Yehuda, around the udder for the purpose of catching the milk? Is it a Torah issue or is it a rabbinic fence? Right? That's the two different. Okay, let's start the Gemara. Anun Gimel Amen Aleph 53 Mabruk. We're on the new page 53a. Amar Shmuel. Now the job of the Gemara is to explain the Mishnah. That's one of the jobs of the Gemara, to elaborate. The Mishnah was very concise. Uday Nasi put together the Mishnah, wrote it very concise. Johnny wrote the laws, but didn't give all the details. Amar Shmuel v'hu kashur lo me'erev Shabbat. That allowance that you could go ahead and go out with a saddlecloth on Shabbat is only if the saddlecloth was tied on before Shabbat. Not Now, meaning to say, if it was tied on Shabbat in a permitted fashion, if you tied it in a permitted fashion that you didn't really tie it in a real, make a real knot or real something, right? Then you would not be able to go out with it, only when it's tied before Shabbat. And now also Tosfot brings different explanations why. Why is it that it has to be tied before Shabbat? What the first reason Tosfot says is that because if you tie before Shabbat, you show that you're using it as a cloth to warm the animal, and that's why you've tied it on and you left it on. But if you go ahead and you tie it on Shabbat itself, then maybe and then you go out with it on Shabbat, so then it might not be perceived as you just for warmth. It seems like it might be more like a load. And some say that if you tie it on the Shabbat, it looks like you're going to a nice trip on Shabbat. Looks like you're going to travel on Shabbat to a long distance, and that it looks and that you're not allowed to do on Shabbat. So I'm saying, meaning if you did not tie it before Shabbat and you tie it on Shabbat itself, people see. If you tie it on Shabbat, anybody can see. Okay, but today you're doing in your bond, tomorrow you're doing it. Not maybe not everybody. If you allow a person to tie it, people will tie it in their bond, outside their bond, and people will see. That's one explanation why there's a concern. And on Shabbat, we got to do things not that it looks like you're going. I'm get my animal ready, and I'm going to a long trip. Okay, David, where do you live, David? Okay, so anytime you're available, we have a class here 6:45, Monday through Friday. We have a minyan at 7:30. We'd love to have you. Thank you for joining. Ralph, have a great day. Asaf, have a great
Thank you.
day. For summer, we have less people. We need some imports from Brooklyn. Well,
They should go on Zoom.
and we'll take. Thank you. Yes, Ralph is encouraging Zoom. We want them live in person too, but we will take you during the year too, not only in the summer. There's breakfast also downstairs after minyan. Have a great day. Chodesh Tov, everybody.
That's tough.
Upstairs, yeah.